Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It means a lot to us. Thank you. In the quaint Dutch town of Hoorn, nestled among the winding canals and cobblestone streets, the year 1995 held a peculiar sense of foreboding. It was in this year that a man named Pieter van der Woodsen awoke from a dream so vivid and so chilling that it clung to his consciousness like a persistent fog. Pieter, a local librarian with an unremarkable life, had never been one for superstitions or the supernatural. Yet, the dream he had that fateful night in October was unlike any he had experienced. In it, he saw events yet to unfold, tragedies and disasters that were precise in their detail and horrifying in their clarity. The first of these premonitions came to pass not a week later when the town's beloved windmill, a structure that had stood for centuries, inexplicably caught fire and burned to the ground. The townsfolk whispered about bad omens and curses, but Pieter knew it was only the beginning. As autumn deepened and the leaves turned from gold to brown, Pieter's dreams grew more frequent and more disturbing. He foresaw accidents and incidents with unnerving accuracy, and soon, the people of Hoorn began to regard him with a mixture of fear and awe. Pieter, however, found no solace in his newfound gift. Each night, he feared sleep, and each day, he watched the townspeople grow more anxious and paranoid. His once peaceful life had become a waking nightmare, a horror story written not by an author's hand but by the cruel pen of fate. The story of Pieter van der Woodsen does not end here, for as long as he draws breath and the veil of sleep descends upon him, the future will continue to unfold in his mind's eye. And as long as you wish, dear reader, his tale of foresight and fear in the heart of Holland will carry on. As the days shortened and the chill of winter began to bite, Pieter's premonitions became a source of constant dread. The townspeople of Hoorn, once skeptical, now hung on his every word, their eyes filled with a mix of desperation and fear. They sought him out for guidance, for any scrap of foresight that might spare them from the unknown terrors that seemed to lurk just beyond the horizon. Pieter, however, felt trapped in a paradox of his own making. The more he revealed, the more he seemed to entangle himself in the web of destiny. It was as if his revelations were not merely predictions but catalysts, each one hastening the arrival of the next grim event. One night, as a fierce storm lashed against his window, Pieter dreamt of the waters rising, the canals of Hoorn overflowing and swallowing the town whole. He awoke with a start, his heart pounding, the lines between dream and reality blurred. In the days that followed, the skies remained clear, but the tension in the air was palpable. Pieter's dreams took a darker turn when he envisioned a figure cloaked in shadow, its face obscured, its intentions unreadable. This specter appeared night after night, always at the periphery of his visions, a silent observer to the calamities that befell Hoorn. The librarian's life became one of solitude and whispers. His once cherished books and manuscripts now gathered dust on the shelves, untouched and unopened. The library, once a haven of knowledge and tranquility, had become a mausoleum of forgotten lore and a sanctuary for one man's haunted psyche. As Pieter wrestled with his curse, the world around him continued its inexorable march towards the millennium. The people of Hoorn, caught between the past and an uncertain future, looked to him for answers he did not have. And so, the story of Pieter van der Woodsen, the reluctant oracle of Hoorn, continues, unwinding like the threads of fate he so desperately seeks to understand. The shadowy figure that haunted Pieter's dreams began to take a more defined shape, its presence growing more ominous with each passing night. It seemed to be waiting, biding its time for an event of unknown significance. Pieter felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. It was as if the very essence of his being was being observed by this enigmatic entity. As the year drew to a close, the townspeople of Hoorn prepared for the holiday season, their festivities tinged with an undercurrent of anxiety. Pieter, meanwhile, withdrew further into himself, his interactions with others becoming more strained and infrequent. On a particularly bleak December night, Pieter dreamt of the town square, the heart of Hoorn, transformed into a scene of chaos. In his vision, the Christmas market, usually a place of joy and celebration, was engulfed in shadows, the air filled with screams and the scent of terror. He saw people running, their faces twisted in fear, as the dark figure from his dreams emerged into the physical world, its intentions now horrifyingly clear. Pieter awoke with a start, his breaths coming in short, sharp gasps. He knew he could no longer keep his visions to himself, he had to warn the townspeople about the impending disaster. With a heavy heart, he made his way to the town square, the cobblestones cold and slick beneath his feet. As he arrived, he found the square bustling with activity, the townspeople blissfully unaware of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Pieter climbed onto the stage where the local choir was set to perform and pleaded with the crowd to heed his warning. But his words were met with skepticism and ridicule. After all, it was the season of light and hope, not doom and gloom. The shadowed figure watched from afar, its form now fully materialized, a dark cloak billowing in the winter wind. It seemed to be waiting for something, or someone. Pieter's story does not end here. His struggle with the premonitions and the mysterious figure continues, as does the tale of the small Dutch town caught between the normalcy of the past and the uncertainty of the future. The days passed, and the shadow's presence in Pieter's dreams grew ever more oppressive. It was as if the figure was not just a harbinger of doom but a puppeteer, pulling at the strings of fate with a purpose that remained shrouded in mystery. Pieter felt himself being drawn into a labyrinth of darkness from which there seemed to be no escape. The townspeople of Hoorn, once vibrant and full of life, now moved through their days with a sense of trepidation. The joyous laughter of children was replaced by hushed conversations and furtive glances. The town, once a tapestry of color and light, now seemed to be painted in shades of gray. As the new year approached, Pieter's dreams took on a new dimension. He began to see himself not just as an observer but as a participant in the unfolding tragedies. In one dream, he was standing in the town square, the shadow looming over him, its cloak fluttering in an unfelt breeze. The figure reached out, its hand emerging from the darkness, and Pieter felt an icy grip around his heart. He awoke gasping for air, the chill of the dream lingering on his skin. The boundary between his nightmares and reality was eroding, and with each dream, Pieter felt a piece of himself slipping away. The shadow seemed to be everywhere now, not just in Pieter's dreams but in the whispered fears of the townspeople. It was as if the figure had become a part of Hoorn itself, a dark stain on the town's soul that could not be cleansed. He sought out the town's historian, an elderly woman named Mevrouw Jansen, who was said to possess knowledge of Hoorn's most ancient and hidden secrets. Together, they pored over old texts and maps, searching for any clue that might explain the shadow's origin or purpose. Their search led them to a forgotten chapter in Hoorn's history, a tale of a dark ritual performed centuries ago, a pact made with forces beyond comprehension. It was said that the shadow was the manifestation of that ancient agreement, a debt owed by the town that had come due. As Pieter and Mevrouw Jansen delved deeper into the mystery, the line between past and present blurred. The shadow's influence grew stronger, and the town of Hoorn found itself on the brink of a darkness that threatened to swallow it whole. The story of Pieter van der Woodsen, the man who dreamt of shadows, continues, as does the tale of a town caught in the grip of an ancient curse. The end of this story remains unwritten, its conclusion resting in the hands of fate and the courage of one man who stands against the darkness. The ancient curse that had lain dormant beneath Hoorn's streets for centuries was now awake, and its shadow stretched across the town like a dark veil. Pieter and Mevrouw Jansen's discovery had revealed the source of the darkness, but with each passing day, the shadow's grip tightened, and the air grew colder, as if winter itself was bending to its will. Pieter's dreams were no longer his own. They belonged to the shadow, to the curse that had claimed him as its seer. The townspeople, once his friends and neighbors, now regarded him with a mixture of reverence and horror. They whispered that he was marked, that the shadow had chosen him for reasons they could not fathom. As the final days of the year approached, the shadow's power reached its zenith. The dreams showed Pieter scenes of despair and destruction, visions of Hoorn consumed by darkness, its canals frozen over, its streets empty and silent. The figure in the cloak stood at the center of it all, a sentinel of the end times. Pieter knew that he could not let this future come to pass. He resolved to confront the shadow, to break the curse that held Hoorn in its thrall. With Mevrouw Jansen's help, he uncovered the location of the ancient ritual that had birthed the shadow, deep within the town's oldest church, hidden beneath the altar. On the eve of the new year, as the townspeople gathered in their homes, Pieter made his way to the church. The doors swung open before him, as if the shadow itself was inviting him in. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the candles that flickered with an unnatural flame. Pieter descended into the crypt, the air growing colder with each step. There, in the heart of the church, he found the altar and the remnants of the ritual that had sealed Hoorn's fate. The shadow awaited him, its form more substantial than ever, its cloak a tapestry of the night sky. With a voice that was both his own and that of the countless souls bound to the curse, Pieter spoke the words of the counter-ritual that Mevrouw Jansen had pieced together from the ancient texts. The shadow recoiled, its form flickering. As the power of the curse began to unravel, the battle between light and darkness raged within the crypt, the outcome uncertain. The shadow, a creature of the pact, fought to preserve its existence, while Pieter, the reluctant oracle, fought for the soul of Hoorn. The story of Pieter van der Woodsen, the man who dreamt of shadows, is a tale of courage and determination in the face of an ancient evil. His journey continues, and the fate of Hoorn hangs in the balance. The crypt of the old church in Hoorn echoed with the sounds of an ancient struggle, the air thick with the scent of centuries-old incense and the weight of destiny. Pieter van der Woodsen, the man who had become an unwilling seer of shadows, stood face to face with the embodiment of the town's darkest hour. The shadow, now writhing in the flickering candlelight, seemed less like a specter and more like a creature of substance and malice. It had been born of a pact made in desperation, a bargain struck without understanding the true cost. And now, as Pieter recited the counter-ritual, the shadow fought back with all the fury of a being facing oblivion. The words of the ritual were old, older than the town itself, and they resonated through the crypt with a power that seemed to shake the very foundations of the church. Pieter's voice grew stronger, more confident, as he felt the tide turning in his favor. The shadow's form began to dissipate, its edges fraying like smoke in the wind, but the shadow was not defeated so easily. With a surge of dark energy, it lashed out, its cloak enveloping Pieter, pulling him into the abyss. Pieter felt himself falling, tumbling through darkness, his senses overwhelmed by the absence of light, of warmth, of life, and then, just as suddenly, he was standing in the town square, the sun shining down on the cobblestones, the people of Hoorn going about their day, oblivious to the battle that raged just beyond their perception. The shadow stood before him, its form now clear and distinct. It was no longer just a cloak of darkness, it had a face that was hauntingly familiar. Pieter realized with a shock that the face was his own, or rather, a twisted reflection of it. The shadow was not just a creature of the pact, it was a manifestation of his own fears, his own doubts, his own darkness. The realization hit him like a physical blow, and he staggered back, his mind reeling. The shadow advanced, its movements mirroring his own. A dance of darkness and light played out in the heart of Hoorn. The story of Pieter van der Woodsen, the man who dreamt of shadows, is a tale of self-discovery and redemption. It is a journey into the heart of darkness, not to conquer it, but to embrace it, to understand that the line between light and shadow is not a divide but a spectrum. And so, the tale continues, unwinding like the canals of Hoorn, flowing into the future, its course as yet uncharted. As Pieter stood in the town square, facing the shadow that bore his own visage, a profound calm settled over him. He understood now that the shadow was not an enemy to be vanquished but a part of himself that needed to be acknowledged and accepted. It was the embodiment of his own fears, insecurities, and the dark thoughts that lurk in the corners of every human soul. With this realization, Pieter reached out to the shadow, and as their hands touched, a surge of light burst forth, enveloping them both. The townspeople, drawn to the square by a force they could not explain, watched in awe as the light grew brighter, warmer, and more radiant. The shadow, no longer a creature of darkness but a silhouette cast by the brilliance of Pieter's acceptance, began to fade. As it dissipated, the air itself seemed to sigh in relief, and the town of Hoorn, released from the grip of the ancient curse, breathed freely once more. In the days that followed, the town returned to its former self, the canals reflecting the clear skies, the streets alive with the sounds of laughter and life. Pieter, once feared and revered, was now simply a man among his people, his gift of foresight a distant memory, but the legacy of that winter in 1995 would live on in the tales told by the fireside, in the whispers of the wind through the windmills, and in
Pieter
the hearts
van
of
der
those who
Woodsen's
had
story
witnessed the power of light over darkness, but with a beginning, the start of a new chapter in the life of a man who had walked through the shadow and emerged into the light. And as the years passed, the tale of the men who dreamt of shadows became a legend, a story to remind us all that within each of us lies the potential for both darkness and light, and it is our choice which path we follow. And so, the story of Pieter and the town of Hoorn is complete, a narrative woven into the fabric of the town's history, a reminder that sometimes, the greatest horrors are not those that lurk in the shadows but those that dwell within us. And the greatest courage is not the absence of fear but the resolve to face it, to embrace it, and to find the light that lies beyond. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It means a lot to us. Thank you.